Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're wrapping up all the books I read in March, and I have quite a few books to talk about for this month. I read 6 books, and a couple of them were for Cursed Book Clubs. We have some interesting things to talk about, I think. Diving straight in though, the first book I read in March was one for my Cursed Book Club, and this was Morning Glory Milking Farm by C.M. Nacasta. This one is a monster romance that I picked up because myself and several of my other friends had heard that it did some interesting things with its romance and like critiques of capitalism, so wanted to give that a shot and ended up being pleasantly surprised that I enjoyed this fairly well. I think I gave it like 3.5 stars. It's very much outside of my usual reading taste, but I did pretty much like the characters. The main character started to annoy me in the second half. We're following this main character who is frustrated with life. She's having trouble getting a job in her field. She's got a lot of student loan debt to pay down. She's dealing with like rent's expensive, cost of living is expensive, and she's just kind of at the end of her rope here. She just wants to figure out a way out of that. And so she applies for this job at Morning Glory Milking Farm, which is a facility attached to a pharmaceuticals company. But she takes up this job and obviously has some nerves about it. She's like, this feels really uncomfortable. I'm not sure if I'm going to be any good at this. I don't know if I'm ever going to feel comfortable like doing this job. But a lot of the book is about her kind of grappling with those feelings, but also starting to have like a different mindset about it because of the financial stability that it brings her, because she has like a consistent paycheck coming in, and the way that her like view on the job changes over time I thought was really interesting. I generally like her because she is relatable, and for the first part of it I think she's pretty like personable and intelligent, and I enjoyed following her for the first part as she was like meeting her coworkers and starting to form relationships with them and starting to adjust to like the different types of clients that she would encounter. But around the midway point, she's already met the love interest. She meets him very early, and I really like him. I can't remember her name, and I'm not going to say his name because it's revealed very late in the book. But the love interest is like just the nicest guy. He is a breath of fresh air amongst Cursed Book Club pick love interests because he's just so nice to her. He's very respectful and polite and kind, and seems to genuinely care about her well-being, even from the start before he really knows her. So he's just like this really nice dude, and I really liked the love interest, but he's so direct. He's very like upfront with what he wants, and she is like Neo dodging bullets, trying to avoid acknowledging that he's interested in her because she's too busy in her head going, oh, he would never be interested in someone like me. Oh, of course he's probably married or has a girlfriend or something. So she just fails to communicate with him throughout the book from about like 45% on, and I found that really frustrating. Even when they get together, she's just failing to communicate him about what she wants out of the relationship, and I found that very frustrating to read. I also think that the book's critiques of capitalism are ultimately a little bit flat because they kind of end with, student loan debt. Sucks, doesn't it? Cost of living is so high. Sucks, doesn't it? And then it sets up a system where the main character and her coworkers are in some ways being exploited, and the clients of the farm are being exploited, and it doesn't look at any of that any deeper. So I feel like it kind of gestures at critiques of capitalism, but then sets up a really fucked up system and doesn't dig into that at all, which like, it's a romance book. It's not intending to, it's not what it's trying to do, but I feel like if you're going to set it up, at least acknowledge it. And I felt like this book did not acknowledge how messed up the system that it was discussing was. So mixed success, but overall had a better time with this than I was expecting going in. So then after that, I started working on Shelf Control episode 3. So I have a couple of books to talk about for that, and actually, let me change the order here. We'll talk about all 3 of those together. All of these I have obviously talked about more at length in that vlog, so I will link that also in case you want to check that out. I'll try to keep this bit a little more brief. But first up for Shelf Control, I read When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, which I absolutely loved. I gave this 4.5 stars. This one is just a really smart, well-paced, well-written thriller with a romance subplot. And I think that Alyssa Cole's background as a romance author really shines through here, and the relationships that are built between the main character and her love interest, but also all of these other people that live in her community. Just those relationships really made the horror hit even harder, and I felt like it was just such a brilliantly written thriller. I had such a good time with this one, and I'm glad I finally picked it up. And then after that, I read Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This was a miss for me. It was fine. I think I gave it 3 stars. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I just think it's a little basic and boring, and there's not enough development of the relationships between the main character and some of the other people, particularly her cousin, who is very important in this story. We're following a young woman who is mute, who grew up in like an orphanage and now ends up finding out that she has a family, and she gets to the estate, but they're not expecting her because the person who supposedly wrote the letter to her has been dead for more than a year and can't have written the letter. And so she's suddenly at this estate that is plagued with a family curse and having to like grapple with that situation, which I think is a really interesting premise. I enjoyed the setup of it, but I think that too much of the opening is focused on her time at the school and setting up that she is not like other girls. And then not enough time is spent with her and her cousin kind of getting to know each other and building their relationship, which made the ending fall a little bit flat for me. So this was a mixed bag in a different way than Morning Glory Milking Farm was. And ultimately, I think I'm going to unhaul this one and hopefully get it in the hands of somebody who will enjoy it more. And then the last book I read for this, I actually DNF'd Light from Uncommon Stars by Reka Aoki. It just was not working for me at all, and I ended up picking up instead The Stardust Grail by Yume Kitase. This was also kind of a mixed success for me. I think I gave this one 3.5 stars as well. This is following a former thief turned academic who is pulled back into a quest for a potentially mythological object called the Stardust Grail. And along the way is like forming relationships with the various crew members. It's very like Indiana Jones or Uncharted-esque, but I think that what didn't work for me here is that it is too actiony. Like it gets the feel of like an Indiana Jones movie across. I assume I've never seen Indiana Jones, but that is what this says right here in this blurb. But to me, it was really feeling like Uncharted. Like it has a lot of that action, but there's not enough downtime in it. It's almost like every single scene is like an action scene, and there's not enough time of the characters kind of unpacking the things that they've experienced. And so some of the relationships here also felt quite flat, particularly the main character Maya's relationship with one of the new crew members who is a former CNE soldier. And Maya grew up on a planet that had, within her lifetime, been at war with the CNE, and a lot of people died around her. She and her family experienced significant suffering and famine. And that relationship just was like way too frictionless and smooth, because we're told that they have a lot of tension with each other, but because we're not seeing any of the downtime when that tension is supposedly happening, we're just seeing them like work really smoothly together in the action sequences. A little bit disappointed, but I did enjoy this enough I would pick up something else from this author. I know they have another book called The Deep Sky that I'm kind of interested in, and I'd be curious to see what they write in the future. After that, we had a real win because I read Wolfworm, which was an ARC, which now I have my final finished copy. I'm very excited about this. So I do have an ARC vlog for this one, and I will link that as well in case you want to check my more in-depth thoughts on this one out as well. But this one was a horror set in late 1800s, I think, very late 1800s, like 1890s North Carolina, following a scientific illustrator who gets this new job working for a reclusive entomologist. She's illustrating his bug collection, and his experiments seem to have gone just like a touch too far. And I don't want to say more than that because it is a fairly short book, and I really liked the reveals of like what was happening here. The horror in this is really unsettling. It's bug-based body horror though, so if you are someone who doesn't like bugs, I would recommend you not pick this one up. It is very disturbing. It made me nauseous several times while I was reading it, but nauseous, parentheses positive, parentheses affectionate. I really enjoyed this. I liked our main character, who's struggling with main character names this month, Sonia Wilson. I really like Sonia and her perspective on the world. A lot of what she experiences, she describes through like the way that she would paint the scene, which I thought was a really fun detail. And I really liked the horror in this one. I liked the side characters, particularly the Kents. Rose and Jackson Kent are some of the people that work in the house alongside Sonia, and I really enjoyed them and the relationship that they form with Sonia as well. And I really liked the direction that the story went overall. And it takes a big old twist at the very end, which I wanted a little bit more resolution on that twist because I feel like it's kind of abrupt and then the book ends and we don't get a whole lot more information about it. But on the whole, this was very scary. I think it has some interesting things with bugs, and I'd recommend it if you're not going to be horrified and have nightmares from bugs. Finally, we have not the final book I read, but the final book I had to talk about, Gothicana by Runix, which I have read previously. I picked this one up for Cursed Book Club to reread. It's the first Cursed Book Club reread that I've done, and I think this one reads even worse the second time around. I won't go into this too much because I could rant about this book all day, but this one is following a young woman named Corvina who gets a suspicious in my mind, acceptance letter from a university she's never heard of and that nobody seems to know anything about. And upon arriving, proceeds to have a romance with her English teacher. But I think if you're reading it with your eyes, you really notice the way that like it's an abusive relationship, and It's really, really disturbing the way that he treats her throughout. I don't mind spoiling a little bit for you, so if you don't want spoilers, skip to the end of the video or stop watching here. Either way, one of the first things he does after she arrives is follow her into the woods and be like, you should be careful out here. I could kill you and no one would know. That just kind of sets the tone for what the relationship is like throughout. He doesn't give a shit about her or her like desires or what she wants out of the relationship. He just wants what he wants and he's gonna take it, and she just is gonna run with that. And the problem is that Corvina has no frame of reference for normal human relationships. She grew up very isolated, very secluded, and we're told like right from the start that her only real like reference for interactions with men are the romances that she reads, and she reads a lot of like fantasy and dark romance, which has a lot of like alpha hole protagonists or love interests. So her only frame of reference for interacting with men is men who are like possessive and abusive to their partners. So it's bad, and I think the wild thing about rereading it is noticing how much the book has written, is written as a horror book, but the book doesn't know that. This is a horror book that thinks it's a romance, and it's really quite disturbing to read on a second go. Also, there's some aspects of the school that I think read particularly creepy in the age of the Epstein files, where it's like, oh, let's just gather a bunch of vulnerable people into a place where nobody can reach them, where they have no internet access and no phone access, and they can't leave of their own accord. And yeah, it's just a little creepy. I did not like it. I didn't like it the second time either. And it might be like, why did you reread it? Because the second time around, I already knew the plot, so I wanted to pay more attention to how it was written and have a more fully formed opinion on it, while I wasn't reeling from the bullshit that is the plot. So, reread it. It was a really interesting experience. I am actually glad that I reread it. It was an interesting time to, like, reread it and discuss it with my friends from a second, like, point of view. Also, when my friends read, like, the last half of the book with me, we literally were set up at my desk with this open like it was some sort of, like, ancient text on my desk, reading it and annotating it. It is full of writing, like, every single page is just covered in notes. So, yeah, the experience was positive, even if the book was bad, if that makes sense. So those are all the books that I read in March. Let me know down in the comments below what you read in March and what your favorite book you read was. And I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, I hope you consider giving it a like, maybe even subscribing to see what comes next. I'm currently posting at least once a week, and I hope to see you in the next video.